Hello and welcome everybody to the Exponential Potential podcast. And today I am joined with my fabulous co-host as the expert guest. Introducing Claire Oatway. Hi
Hey,
Claire.
hello. Hi, Jen. You're looking radiant today. Sorry for everyone who's on audio, but Jen's looking fabulous.
Thank you, darling. And right back to you as well, because you are. I think we're both full of energy.
Is that a cue that if you're missing this, go to YouTube, find us on YouTube, and then you'll see.
Yeah, we're on YouTube at Exponential Podcast if you're
Oh.
interested. So today we are talking about the hidden dangers of chronic stress and burnout. It's a very serious subject. So we'll be diving in about what that looks like, um, how to notice it, because that's really key, and what you can do about it, as well as some other things. But it is something that so many people um, suffer with. I know a lot of clients, and as do you, Claire,
Yep.
who are in the throes of feeling burnout or at least overwhelmed and anxious. So it's a really important topic, and it's something that Claire is incredibly passionate about. So we're really excited about bringing this episode to you and hopefully bringing you some really good tools that you can use to help create calm and feeling grounded and all those good things. So, a
Yeah.
quick introduction to my fabulous host, because we don't often do this on our podcasts, but Claire is truly a highly experienced expert leadership and strategy consultant and coach for experts, high achievers, and entrepreneurs who are ready to elevate their business with a strong, positive growth mindset. So welcome, Claire.
Thank
Really
you.
been really looking forward to this episode because I know it's going to be so beneficial for our listeners.
Yeah, and also it truly is because there are so many people that are suffering and don't need to suffer. In terms of our conversation today, I'm going to be really honest that I burnt out very badly after ignoring years of signals, and we'll go into that in a little bit more depth. But I think that it's almost a side effect at times, should
Mm.
definitely have a health warning, of being a high achiever, of being somebody who strives, who tries to do the best and keeps going. It's, there's definitely a high level of risk in many women that take up leadership roles, especially. So yeah,
Mm.
really important.
Yes, yeah, and men get it as well, don't they? But there is a lot extra, I would say, that's piled on top of women. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just around some of the additional roles that we take on in the workplace and outside the workplace. And I'm not even just talking about familiar roles, all of the extra duties that seem to be the office housework that women pick up because we don't say no. Um, but also it's around the belief systems that we um, grow up in and we get promoted through. So yeah, when you mentioned the word overwhelm, kind of that triggered me a little bit because overwhelm makes you feel like you can't cope with the stress, and you should know how to cope with the stress, and you should keep going. It's like you're just overwhelmed, so you can't cope, so you're not good enough for the job. And women really feel that a lot more than men do, typically, I'd say.
Mm. And actually, there's not so long ago, it just reminded me there's a really funny film called Hysteria. So it's a bit rude, it's a bit saucy, it's quite extraordinary.
I find
but
it.
but not too long ago, back in the early 19th century, 20th century, sorry, and prior to that, women were seen to be hysterical. Where so that is carried within us, isn't it? That I can't be seen to be overwhelmed. I need to be seen that I've got my stuff together, together. Um, Otherwise, I'm just some hysterical woman that's,
Yeah.
you know, oh, just being a woman.
Emotional.
Emotional, exactly. Oh, just being an emotional woman. So we kind of pretend, don't we? We put on this, no, I've got to have my stuff together. I've got to have it all together. I've got to be, this together woman. Otherwise, I'll be seen as this pathetic
Yeah.
woman. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel that it almost makes me, yeah, that kind of hits me hard. That
It's a real bullshit rule, isn't it? And
it
it's
is.
like, in order to prove my worth, because I wasn't born with a penis, I have to suck it all up and be like superwoman and be super strong. And for many years, and she still is, Wonder Woman is like my
Mm,
avatar. I love it. And people
mm,
would like give me little Wonder Woman things. It's probably shaped by my hair's like this as well. Um, I adore Wonder Woman as a superhero and as an icon for many reasons. But actually, I was given a piece of art, and it was Claire and Wonder Woman, and described all the brilliant things about Claire. You've probably seen them before. They're really gorgeous. So loving, kind, strong, in the shape of Wonder Woman. And at the time of burnout, I rejected it. I completely rejected it. It's like, no, I don't want to be. I don't want to be seen as. This is ridiculous. And it's, you know, very, very, very negative view of this concept of Wonder Woman, because it felt that it was a way of trapping me into a persona that was so deeply unhealthy. Okay,
mm,
sorry,
mm,
diving straight in there.
yes. So how what was the moment that you realized, because you mentioned that you've also went through burnout. So what was the moment when you realized you were experiencing burnout?
um, the first time that I really labeled burnout as burnout had been a time when I was sat on my sofa at home and had stopped. And it was the first time that I'd stopped. And I felt empty. I felt like a husk. It just
Mm,
didn't feel like there was anything left in me or to me. I felt small and flat and didn't know, it, just lost, just so
mm,
deeply lost and broken. And for a long time I've been able to work with stress and push through stress, and then you have a holiday, and then you change a project, and then you just keep going. um but this was so much different. It was, kind of razed to the ground almost.
mm,
Just felt there wasn't any coming back. And kudos to a paramedic at the local GP practice, because I'd gone to him and said, "Look, I'm really struggling. Can I have a week off?" And he said, "No, you need a month. Go away." Just like, and when you have that intervention, then you realise you've really truly have pushed it too far.
mm. And isn't it amazing though how far we do push it?
Mm.
Like to the point where your GP said, no, you're taking a month off. You need a month.
Yeah, yeah, and literally an hour before that meeting, I've been running a 6 million turnover business responsible for the lives of 40,000 patients, with 200 people working for us, and families, and all of the safety elements that go with that. And chronic stress is symptomatic of working within the NHS, because the environment's not great. But actually, it's quite, looking back, it was really quite a dangerous scenario, not just for me, but for potentially for other people.
Mm. Yeah, because you're not you're not functioning, are you, at that point?
No,
and
no,
not thinking straight. So what were some of the early signs for people that, because we miss it, don't we, as well? It creeps up on us, and we kind of accept it as part of life. I think
yeah,
that's really an important part for people to sort of notice these things as well, isn't it? To not just brush it under the carpet and think, "Oh, this is just life. It's just stress."
yeah,
Because it's not just stress. It's
no.
putting your health and well-being in danger.
Well, it is, and your
And
livelihood, and your
yes,
career, and your family,
your
and your
relationships.
shelter, your everything,
Yeah.
everything, um, was broken at that point. Um, and for probably, I'd always been somebody who, as a high achiever, quite ambitious, was pushing myself along. Kind of, my mentor had said, you're not somebody who's content to burn the candle at both ends. You burn it in the middle as well. It's like, oh. But actually, there's some great trappings of success in that. So,
Mhm.
the promotions, the opportunities to talk, kind of always say yes as I went. Um, but there were other signs around the stress. So the irritation with other people, that definitely got stronger and stronger as it went.
So, but
And
when you were in it,
mm,
you didn't necessarily notice that that's what was happening.
no,
So,
no, because
but now you can look back and reflect on it.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I used to describe it as yeah, quite in a pictorial sense. If you imagine a valve on a machine that kind of goes to red for warning, and the stress levels are almost kind of creeping up and creeping up, and you go towards red, and you look at it and you think, oh no, it's okay. It'll keep going for another week. It's fine. They keep pushing, and like, oh, it's such and such's fault because Tyler had been a pain in the ass, and so that's one reason why I was being really bad, or it's just not sleeping very well, or there's a holiday coming up, and so you get used to just ignoring that little warning sign and almost like colouring that bit in amber because it's not really red, it's amber, and then you let it go further. And actually, the way that your brain responds then is it stops recognizing the stress as stress, just treats it
So you
more as
so your
normal.
I just so your brain stops recognizing it's as stress, and you
Yeah,
normalize it.
yeah.
Yeah. So you said, so some of the signs that you overlooked, one was irritability. What were some of the other signs?
Uh, Definitely elements of paranoia. Definitely elements of paranoia. I had retreated as well quite a bit to my office, so I'd spent more and more time locked away because that felt quite manageable.
Mhm.
And I felt secure. Definite tearfulness, um, and that had come through. And unfortunately, at the time, and particularly because I've been through other stuff in my body, I'd started to hit perimenopause as well. So the tearfulness, you kind of go, oh well, I'm just in my 40s. Is that is fine, just
Double whammy.
normal. Yeah, yeah. But actually, that comes through as a strong element of stress. Um, a lot of doubt too, and really deep questioning of your direction, deep regret. So you feel emotions so strongly. Um, I'd about I don't know, about 9 months before I'd completely broken down. I was at an awards ceremony. I was actually up for practice manager of the year in a brand new category. So I was like, yay! And then a couple of days before, Steph was taken into hospital, really unexpectedly. He developed an ulcer behind his tonsil and had been away over the weekend racing bloody cars. And then he came back and said, "Oh, the doctors sent me up to the hospital." It's like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay. Oh, the hospital are keeping me in overnight." Right. So I'm about to go to Birmingham. I've got 3 national talks and a national conference. I've been talking, this is like my 4th year talking out loud. So I've developed quite a, not a following, but a reputation for talking. I'm up for this award. Pat, what do I do? It's like,
Mhm.
no, this is you. You need to go. It'll all be fine. Kind of mum will take care of. I da da da. And I went, and the talks went well, and everything like that. And unfortunately, I came runner up at this big event, and I just was hysterical. It's like, and then really embarrassed because it wasn't because I'd lost. And then everyone's like, "Oh no, you weren't going to win because you're too close." Oh no, so you did brilliantly. You deserve the win. It's like, no, it's not that. It's what the hell am I doing here? What the hell am I
Mm.
doing here? Why am I not at home? This means nothing. So you've got all
Mm.
these internal conflicts that start to come through as well. And with this, kind of, this is probably something that people can relate to, as the stress has been going, so the inner chatter had been getting louder and louder and louder. So the judgment was coming through really strongly. And that's one of the reasons why I've done so much research around this concept of inner saboteurs and these inner voices, because my inner critic had turned to a bully.
Mhm.
So it didn't matter what else was going on there, it was amplified internally in my head, and kind of, not that that had accelerated, but that had deepened the damage, and had probably switched the stress over towards burnout.
Mm. 'Cause as you're saying that, that inner critic, that putting what you're constantly judging yourself, and having almost these arguments or this I love, a bully in your own head,
Yeah.
and that just feels really heavy and that's really stressful.
Yeah.
And then
And
you get into that downward spiral, don't you? And it's really difficult to get out of because it's constant. You're constantly battering and beating yourself up, aren't you, from
yeah,
a mental point of view?
yeah. And you're always second guessing what other people might be thinking, what they might be saying, what they might be
Mm.
doing, and so kind of that, when that's going on, you then start to get more of this defense mechanism. So you kind of, shoulders back, no, no, under control, da, 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 da. And you become more robotic, because it's a way of defense, not necessarily from anybody else, but from your perception of what other people might be thinking or saying. It's bloody exhausting, actually.
Mm. And also because you're judging yourself so badly, you think that other people are judging you as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
that makes sense. And then the
And
energy the energy that you put off when you're in that place as well, the energy that you're giving off in that space, it must have created quite a lot of conflict and struggles with relationships, both in and out of work.
well, it had so uh, kind of, I've always been quite a patient and tolerant person, and I've grown up with 2 brothers, so yeah, I'm used to. I used to be in the peacekeeper, as it were,
Hmm.
and so that had split. Not so much that people were walking on eggshells around me, but they were cautious. And in a work situation, you come across quite forceful. So people not get out of your way, but they kind of just, sometimes you feel like you're being more productive because you're getting stuff done. You're not. There's no nonsense pushing stuff through. But yeah, it's really is quite damaging on those
Hmm.
relationships for sure.
So talking about team, how it affects people at work and team dynamics. So how does it impact on in your own experience? How does it impact leadership and team dynamics when you are in that state of burnout?
So you get caught in uh, kind of quite fixed thinking patterns. So you can be quite quick to judge others, mainly through your own sense of security or lack of security. So you can project um, blame and criticism just as quickly as to others as you are on yourself or in a situation, which means that you're not always looking for the empathy or trying to focus on what the patterns are underneath. You're fixing, but you're not understanding. You're not being curious. Everything that we've been talking about here. Um, you're yeah, so another image that repeatedly came through for me as a bit of a warning sign was, and again, it's very graphic, but I felt like a sow, so a female pig with lots of little piglets just sucking all the time. So I just felt that I'd been sucked dry by other people,
Totally
and
drained.
yeah, then you kind of go, well, you need to look at self care more. And again, it was your fault. Um, but you feel resentful of other
Mm.
people, and so at times that can lead to criticism or blame or them. It's them. It's not necessarily you. So it really does have that big impact, and it doesn't necessarily bring the team together. And at times when you're in that leadership role, people don't always uh, challenge that directly. And as leaders, you don't often have people ask if you're okay either.
Hmm.
So there's not space for that conversation either, let alone, how much you'd want to role model it. It's, you just don't have the space all the time to reflect on where you are. So it's highly dysfunctional for teams.
And as a leader, when you feel like that, it must feel very lonely that you're alone, that you don't have the support that you need. And
I
because it's sort of it's did you view it as a weakness? Even did you when you realized that you were in a burnout phase or you were really chronically stressed, did you see that initially as a weakness?
um if I can be really honest, I didn't have space to see it as a weakness because I saw it as proof that I wasn't good enough to be a leader.
So it's a weakness because
Yeah,
you're not good enough. But that
yeah.
was the story that you then told yourself. Well, I'm not good enough because if I was good enough, I would be able to manage the stress. I wouldn't be feeling like this. So clearly I can't be a leader. That must have been really how did that thought, if you remember, how did that impact you? But that would have added more on top, wouldn't it, in terms of that negative voice?
Deep, deep sadness, really.
Mm.
Deep, deep, what am I here to do? And then also, the voice amplifies the criticism or perceived criticism of others because you're like, well, actually, you start to connect up the dots. Oh, well, they were right, and then they were right, and they were right.
And if you didn't believe you were good enough as a leader, that belief would then affect the rest of the team because you would lose your confidence. You lost confidence in yourself and your abilities.
Yeah. yeah. I got to say that, yeah, there are two other really big triggers that had, for me, um, been hugely damaging. And other people will have their equivalent as well. So one was that we were going through some family therapy. So Ty's adopted, so we wanted to help him to prepare for that, for those
Mhm.
conversations and those changes as he moves to adolescence. And in therapy, we then went through our own therapy first, which was talking about the fertility process, the adoption process, stress at work, previous emotionally abusive relationship. So all these skeletons that I'd put in the cupboard as a resilience note. No, I can go through that. I can go through that. All of a sudden, those came pouring out,
Mm.
and my legs were taken from under me. So I didn't have that core strength because I was having to face some of the past traumas at the same time. And then similarly, another trigger was in another part of the country, another practice manager had committed suicide, which
Wow,
was
gosh.
just like, whoa. And, again, rare enough, thankfully, to be shocking. But actually, I had known of many people in their 40s and 50s who'd had heart attacks, developed cancer. I wasn't near that. But actually, I could understand how lost she may have felt. I would drive around at crazy speeds, late for meetings all the time, on the phone. So, it's only for the grace of the universe that something hadn't happened. And it was just a massive, what am I doing? How did I get here?
Mm.
And then slump, everything gone. It's just, yeah.
So
The good
what?
news is it doesn't say that. You don't say that.
Yes, yes, that's really like this is a I did warn you listeners it was going to be a serious episode, but it is such an important one. So on the upside of that, what actions, and actually I want to ask a question, but I'll ask it later, but if I forget, could you remind me? I want you to reflect back on the positive elements of that burnout and where it's brought you today. So if I don't ask you that, bring that up in conversation because I think that's an important question. So from a practical point of view, what actions, what steps did you take to address your burnout to bring you back to yourself?
So the two most important actions. One was actually listening to the medical advice and the doctors. Yeah. So they offered counselling and support as well. So take all of that because that creates structure and space to realize that you're not aligned. You're not functioning as a biological entity. so, so grab that. The
So
second is
grab any expertise, help, therapy that is offered,
yes, yes, yes,
and you did.
yeah, and talk to family and friends because they. So after it had first happened, people said they didn't realize how stressed I was.
Mm.
And I can understand that because shoulders back, highly professional, this leading and leading. And for close friends, they don't know how to broach the conversation. Even mums don't really know how to broach the conversation because they don't want to verbal. So reach out and they don't have to say anything. They just have to be with you and remind you that you're you. But you have to take that first step to call and say, hey, you want a coffee? Come on. Because they want to help. They don't know how. But reach out to friends, family. The
Uh,
space. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it's interesting, and because we've talked about asking for help before, and it always makes you go a little bit oh, little
Yeah.
for most women, it makes us feel uncomfortable because it is.
Yeah.
It's again part of that proving I'm independent. I can do it alone. You can, but do you want to make it easier for yourself, or do you want to struggle more? And I think at that point you were ready for any help that you could receive.
Yeah.
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 And I think it's important that what you said, I want to just reiterate what you said was people want to help. They want to be there for you and they're there to listen. That's why we have friends and family. Certainly friends, not always family, but certainly friends, good friends are there to support each other. So yeah, yeah. So reach
Um,
out to people, get all the
and
help that that you can get professionally.
get outside in the open air,
Mm.
and whether it's just walk and walk and walk, or sit and watch. So a lot of time spent in the garden or in the the fabulous countryside around us, that makes a big difference. And it might be cliched, but I actually went into churches for the first time in decades. Decades. I wasn't brought up a Christian, and I'm still not a Christian. I have a different belief system. Um, but I felt a need to connect to something that was far bigger and far greater, because it, it just felt like that was a huge void. So actually, that for me had triggered a lot of different exploring in terms of well, it's when I first discovered Gabby Bernstein
Mhm.
and the hope for spirituality, and things that had been in me but unexplored for a long time, to help me kind of realize that actually it's not all about this ego, it's not all about this moment in time, it's not even all about me. You become really myopic. You need to kind of connect back that you are one piece in an infinite puzzle, but you're only one piece. So that means that all those resources around you are there to help you as well, but need to look out. So spirituality was a very strong feature that came through for me. Um, and then on the physical side, actually supercharging the vitamins and supplements like you wouldn't believe. That again. My first marker that I'm overstressed is that my toenails look a bit shabby and aren't touched up, which is a really visible marker. So I don't know why I ignored that so much. But it's a marker that my self care starts to slip, and it goes through to diet, and it goes through to sleep, and it goes through to all those other elements. So nurturing your physical body is one of the practical ways that you can start to recover and come back from
Mhm.
wherever. Doesn't have to be at full burnout. Okay, that
Mhm.
definitely works very well at stress.
Mm. And what you were saying about spirituality, I was brought up a Catholic, and I rebelled at 14 and refused to go to church. But I know the feeling that you mean when you go into church, and not necessarily when there's a service going on, but you just go when there's nobody there. And there's just such a lovely sense of peace and harmony, isn't there? There's an energy
Yeah,
there that's very
yeah.
peaceful.
So serenity. It's
Yes, yeah, serenity.
mm,
Yes, and that's a nice segue into our next episode as well about divine feminine power. Uh, so we'll be talking about that in our next themes episode. Is there anything that you would? So you're talking about supplements and things, and obviously you're not a nutritionist or anything like that. But what did you find that helped you in terms of supplements and vitamins and nourishing your body with
yeah, yeah.
the
So
right things.
around, um, definitely around the evening primrose, and as I've mentioned, kind of with the timing, perimenopausal.
Mm.
stressed and wacky. It's the hormones are just going absolutely everywhere. The vitamin B, really getting a great vitamin B complex. For sleep, magnesium is a really good supplement for sleep about half an hour before you go to bed. It worked for me,
Mhm.
again, not as a nutritionist, but it's a really good one. And I think sleep is so important to help your body to naturally rebalance each time. Um, yeah, and just being really conscious about the fact that alcohol and the sugar, and I enjoy both,
Yes.
um, are actually kind of really fast burn. So they lead to slumps more quickly than you realize. And so
Mhm.
just becoming more conscious that, you know, don't have to stop eating the chocolate. Sometimes can't. But actually, there's a consequence if you do. So mixing up and bringing in, more proteins and nuts, and
Mhm.
just to try to have more even energy throughout the day
Yes.
rather than the slumps, because everything was just so heightened.
And have you noticed, you mentioned there, I just wanna pull that through again, um, when you were in the throes or in feeling burnout and chronic stress, you mentioned you were also sort of perimenopausal as well. Do you think that's something, when women go through burnout or are sort of exceeding their having, running on empty, let's say,
Mhm.
do you think that there's a link or there's a tie-in between perimenopausal, menopausal, and that and burnout?
Um, I'm not sure how much of a link there is, but because of some of the symptoms, because of some of the emotional symptoms, because of some of the impacts on sleep, I think when you have them both together, you you ascribe symptoms to perimenopause instead of to stress,
Mhm.
and vice versa. And they both, they clash against each other and kind of make everything much bigger. Um, so I think when they both come at the same time, just need to be really, really careful.
Yeah. Yes, and I know for myself going through menopause, I had very little symptoms, and when I noticed what I was eating, that had a massive impact. I had aches and pains. I very rarely had hot flushes. Didn't have many sleep pattern issues because I wasn't in a situation of stress. So I think the perimenopausal can heighten the burnout, but the burnout can also heighten those symptoms because you can move through menopause with much more ease than we do. And I
Yeah.
think that high level stress um, certainly enhances and amplifies that. Is
Yeah.
there anything
Um,
else? Go on, sorry,
oh, yeah,
Jen.
I was going to say there is probably something else that I could bring in. So, if
Mm,
we've talked about the social, we've talked about the physical, we've talked about the universal aspects, and the emotional aspects, but the other one is probably the mental side as well, and rewriting.
what do you mean by
We've
rewriting?
free writing, really,
Oh,
just
sorry,
journaling. Yeah,
free. Sorry, free.
I've talked a lot about that voice, but actually kind of putting it down on paper, giving it space to express, just letting it go, letting it flow out of me, and being able to look back at it you know, was a complete changer. And then, of course, moving on to other structured writing exercises that we definitely don't have time for now. But but you need the release. You need to externalize that
Mm,
voice, and writing is
yes.
crucial, or was for me.
Mm, okay. And is there anything else you want to offer? I do want to say to before you add anything else at the end. Um, oh, there was a question that we didn't answer, but I'm not sure we're going to have time. Just to, before we answer that question, I just want to say if you want to dive deeper into coaching with Claire, um, there's a special call to action where Claire's inviting you to dive into coaching with her with a strategy call, especially if you're an aspiring leader or seasoned executive. It's a really great opportunity for you to explore self aware leadership and unlock your fullest potential. So I highly recommend you book a strategy call with her. She's fantastic, and the link is in the description. And let's just come back to that final question that I now remember that I mentioned. So through all of that, through your whole journey of chronic stress, burnout, how you behave, how that manifested in created struggle in your life. But looking back now, what were the positives as you look back through your journey? What were the positives of you actually going through that?
Um, so the positives for me were around breaking a cycle. So really starting, I think if it hadn't happened, I'd have continued, and I'd have continued at the pace and the level, and we'd still be here, just except I'd have more grey hair, more wrinkles, and probably less healthy, because I needed that, and my pattern needed to be disrupted. I think it really challenged me to examine my belief systems about myself, my worth, my relationships, um, and to examine the belief systems that I'd grown up in. And kind of both of those are really strong elements that I bring through. Whenever people talk to me about leadership and strategy, I really encourage them to go deep, deep, deep to themselves and to lead themselves first before they lead others, because it's truly the only sustainable route in my view. Um, and to really see the value and encouragement that I can offer to others. That their ideas are valid, they're worth, they're, they're brilliant, and that encouragement side, um, in a role as a coach and a consultant, as opposed to kind of being in the thick of it all of the time, is a much healthier balance for me, and it means that I can kind of really help others to do everything that I did without necessarily the impact that I had on
Yes.
myself and my family.
Yes. Yeah, and because you went through what you went through, you're able to be of assistance to other people through your experience.
Yeah.
And do you feel that you're making a much bigger impact than you would have done if you just stayed doing what you were doing?
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I look at the entrepreneurs that I've worked with and how their businesses are growing, and I look at how individuals grow, and I look at the work that we do together. We'd never have touched on this. It kind of created different ripples then, but actually, I do feel that I am more aligned to who I am, um, and bringing that to many more people,
Mm.
which is just a great place to be.
Mm. Brilliant.
And, and I got to meet you.
Yes, yeah, well, that would have never
Finally.
happened. There's always there is, no matter how dark the days seem, that when we have no idea of what you're going through right now, we have no idea of the positive outcomes that can occur through going through a difficult journey, a difficult situation.
No.
Yeah.
But really, what I hope that our listeners get from today, and I know that this has probably been triggering for a lot of people, um, and highly personal, really, as a journey. But what I hope we get from this is that you feel that we're a virtual blanket to say it's okay. Got
Mhm.
you, got you. You're okay. Just breathe and take that next step. And also that it will get better. It will get better. Take those steps. You can do it.
And ask for help.
Indeed.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. I'm sure this has helped many, 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 many people. And thank you for being so vulnerable, Claire. That was, like you say, it's a very personal journey. So we will see you, or you will hear us or see us next time on our episode Exponential, or our podcast Exponential Potential. Till then, have a wonderful day.
Bye for now. See you. Bye 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 bye.